Welcome to the Fantasy Football Fanalist Podcast, presented by Fantasy Data. Here's your hosts, Billy Muzio and Bradley Stalder.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy Football Fanalist Podcast presented by Fantasy Data. And we've had one beginning week into this NFL season, Bradley. Camp news, week one is off the charts. I love week one camp. It's like everything that my soul desires in football. All the news is coming out, all the storylines, every single handoff from every single backup running back, every single catch that we can see. And I'm eating it all up all week, Bradley. Outside football, I didn't do much. I did drafts this week. I did a bunch of camp news. I did, some things here for the show. How about you? Did you do anything fun this week?
I finished Summer Academy. So long story short, I was the Summer Academy principal for my school. And it was a lot of learning and a lot of growth and challenged me in ways that I hadn't imagined. So I am free for the rest of the summer until we start kicking it off.
Freedom!
Billy told me that he would pull up that picture. Yes. Minus the face paint. That is, I've drank some coffee. I'm ready for tonight's podcast. We've got some news. As you mentioned, the opening of camp brings all of the hype videos. It brings all of the worries, and the drama surrounding Michael Thomas, surrounding Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers. We're going to dive into all of these headlines, determine if there's smoke to the fire to the smoke. And let's talk about Michael Thomas, Billy.
Oh, not good for fantasy. I mean, it just seems to be one thing after another with Michael Thomas. I mean, last year with the ankle injury and the dissatisfaction that he had with the Saints to begin the season. I just think that this is kind of a combination of everything. We're hearing that he was supposed to return to the specialist here. I don't want to steal your thunder. That's on your notes, but he didn't follow those instructions. And here we are in June. He finds out that he needs surgery and it's going to go in the middle of the season. So I'm out on Michael Thomas. I actually only have one more share in Dynasty to get rid of. And I'm trying to pawn him off as much as I can. And no takers in that league just because it's a pretty savvy league. But I think eventually maybe middle of the season, we'll find someone who's going to be looking for a good push down the end of the season. And Michael Thomas will be coming back towards the end and I may be able to, get rid of him then.
Savvy fantasy players have to have a little distrust of Michael Thomas. We thought that Michael Thomas would be able to come back to full strength, and he didn't. And now it's the off season, and Michael Thomas still is not at full health. You mentioned that he was supposed to see a specialist. Coach Sean Payton called him out about it. Michael Thomas may miss 4 to 6 weeks to start, but we saw how those couple weeks in the 2020 season turned into almost the entire season, and how fragile these ankle injuries are. Like, let's be honest, there's also risk baked in with what kind of quarterback is going to be throwing passes for the New Orleans Saints come middle of November when Michael Thomas might be at full health.
Yeah, I updated those rankings today, and they aren't pretty. I mean, we're taking a look at the wide receiver core that we have here. Alvin Kamara touches the lack of touchdown upside now. I am now presumably saying Taysom Hill's the starter because I don't think that you have Jameis Winston in there with that wide receiver core. I think you need that element of Taysom Hill and his legs in this offense. So that just downgrades a lot of this entire offense to me, especially Alvin Kamara in the running game.
So is Alvin Kamara going behind the likes of Austin Eckler, Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott? Like, is he supposed to be going behind these guys now with the loss of
not Barkley, because Barkley's falling because of the, we'll get to his name shortly here on the list, but because he is, they're taking the slow approach with Barkley. So Barkley's fallen in the middle of the second round right now in FFPC drafts. I mean, I got him at 211 in an FFWC draft, which I pulled the trigger there because I was willing to, risk reward upside at that point. Well worth it. But I mean, I still think Alvin Kamara is a top, 6-7 pick. I mean, I'm not the one taking him, quite frankly. I'd rather have somebody like, an Eckler, a Travis Kelce, a Zeke, a Darren Waller, even, somebody, especially in these FFPC formats that have 1.5 PPR. I just think that there's, less risk associated with those picks, especially when we saw what Taysom Hill did last year. I mean, he was vulturing Alvin Kamara left and right on goal line carries. I went through and updated those touchdowns. I took away 4 touchdowns from Alvin Kamara with my projections this week, just based upon the fact that I think that Taysom Hill is a starter. So is it finalized? No, but I'm going to continue to fine tune those. But that's my initial projections upon the Michael Thomas news.
Well, and that'll also touch upon Taysom Hill working with the first team in the New Orleans camp. He gets the first crack at team 1 reps. Jameis Winston, of course, battling for that quarterback 1. But with how this team is designed, Bill, you mentioned it earlier, I can't imagine a scenario where Jameis Winston is the more effective quarterback in this type of offense, given the weapons that he has. So Sean Payton said that the first team quarterback will change daily. So, we have to monitor this closely. I think that that's going to be really important, but this is a true quarterback competition. And if you were banking on Jameis Winston being your quarterback 2 in, let's say, a super flex league, that could be a really hairy situation.
Yeah, it definitely becomes hairy. Like I said, I've never been a Taysom Hill believer. I absolutely despise the man at quarterback for fantasy purposes, especially for Alvin Kamara owners. It's unfortunate news, but I mean that the show must go on, and that's what we're left to face with now moving forward in 2021.
Well, and the show must go on behind Michael Thomas. Presumably Traquan Smith steps up. Marquez Callaway has gotten some talk, but NewOrleansFootball.com's Nick Underhill reported that potential breakout Deontay Harris was arrested in early July for driving while allegedly under the influence. Harris's arrest occurred in Maryland, and while there's been no discipline from the league right now, these situations typically come with a 2-game suspension. Harris was the primary punt returner, but we saw how dynamic he was getting sweeps and receptions. So taking yet another player possibly out of the lineup as well with some dynamic playmaking ability, this could pose even more of a problem, opening up for the likes of Lil Jordan Humphrey. We were underwhelmed with his performance last year.
Yeah, it's something I'm avoiding now altogether. This just as receiving core. I'll take stabs on like Traquan Smith late in drafts, especially in best ball. But in redraft, I'm staying away from the entire receiving core outside Trotman. I think Trotman takes a big bump up with this Michael Thomas news, and it's really the only player that I am comfortable drafting now ahead of where he was going in ADP. Like we saw him going in mid round 10, and now he's jumping up to like round 8. And and that's another player that I'm definitely going to be honing in on more in drafts.
We did get good news out of Cincinnati, though, that Joe Burrow was not placed on the physically unable to perform list after suffering a brutal ACL tear mid-season. The Bengals run a lot of plays. They are very fast-paced. Zach Taylor has shown that through at least the first half of the season when Joe Burrow was on pace for almost 40 passes per game, and the pass volume was there, certainly. What does this mean for the Bengals offense that Joe Burrow is going to be ready, hopefully, for week 1?
It's a pass-heavy offense. I mean, we're going to see him reunite with Chase here. We still have T. Higgins. We still have Tyler Boyd. I think this is one of the best trios in the NFL now, especially with Joe Burrow at helm. I think this opens the field also for Mixon here, as long as this O-line is able to get at least a decent blocking job going on. We've even seen this offensive line be, bottom 10% year after year in offensive line rankings and grades. But I think with the offensive weapons they have in the passing game, it's going to spread the field a little bit more and open up some alleyways for Mixon. And let's face it, there's no one else really behind him either in this depth chart for these running backs. So you have Chris Evans, my Pirine, like, no, thank you. I mean, I'll take stabs at him, but Joe Burrow here is going to be favoring these wide receivers and leaning on Joe Mixon in the passing game as well. So we're seeing him have that connection immediately that he had with Chase in college. He still has that connection with Higgins. So I think that this offense is going to be pretty electric. And I think that Joe Burrow is going to have one hell of a sophomore year.
Aside from the Dallas Cowboys, is there any other team, the Cincinnati Bengals, maybe, who will have the possibility of 3 1,000-yard receivers?
Yeah, I think those two off the top of my head are probably the only two that I can think about that have the chance of it. Maybe if you add in San Francisco, including Kittle, Kittle, Ayuk, and Debo, I think have a possibility or a chance to hit that number. I don't think that's likely based upon the limited number of passing plays that they run on an annual basis. But I think that Joe Burrow and the Bengals here, as well as the Dallas Cowboys, are the only ones that have a real chance at that, especially with the wide receiver sets.
All right, we'll shift from good news to a quarterback to bad news with a quarterback. And coming out of Indianapolis Colts camp today, Carson Wentz is out indefinitely with a foot injury. We're finding out more as the time goes on today, but the reports out of Indy are that Wentz will be out. He probably will miss games to start the season. It is not season ending. However, what does this mean for the Indianapolis Colts? And are there any quarterback targets that maybe the Colts should be interested in aside from any quarterbacks currently on their roster?
Oh, yeah, I think it's definitely a downgrade across the board. I mean, I'm pumping the brakes now on my Michael Pittman breakout campaign. I mean, we had Paris Campbell. Bradley hates Michael Pittman. I love Michael Pittman. But we had Paris Campbell was looking strong in camp, but I think it all is hinged upon who's going to be playing quarterback for these first several weeks. I saw a bunch of, realm of possibilities out there. Maybe Jimmy Garoppolo's traded. I doubt it, right? Maybe they trade for Minshew. Maybe they trade for Foles.
Minshew mania, baby. Let's go.
So I think that there's a lot of different options out there in the league right now, but I mean, you just paid a second for Wentz, with the chance of it being a first if he played more. So this is not looking good for the Eagles on their side of the trade as well. So all around, this is just bad news, not only for the Eagles, but for Indy. Or I should say backwards, not only for Indy, but for the Eagles as well. And quite frankly, this running game. I mean, I'm downgrading Jonathan Taylor because people are going to be able to stack the box here. They're not going to have to worry about as lethal of a passing game. And they're just going to load up that box, run 7, run 8 in the box and stop Jonathan Taylor. So for me, the only ones who's really going to see any sort of bump is possibly Nyheim Hines, flat work, little dump offs from whoever's at quarterback. So I'm not liking the news out of Indy today.
I'm not liking it either, but you mentioned Gardner Minshew and Minshew mania, like just even an ounce or a drop of Gardner Minshew love. I can get totally behind that.
He'd finally be able to take a shit. Like he hasn't taken a shit in 2 weeks. What do you say? Number 2 is not an option.
Well, yeah. And he's actually getting, and this wasn't on our show notes, but he's getting some first team reps, and Urban Meyer is making Trevor Lawrence compete with Gardner Minshew in those first team reps. But let me just
I'm not buying it. That's BS. You don't take Trevor Lawrence number 1 and tell him he's not starting. Okay, Urban Meyer.
Humor me for a second.
Okay, 1 second.
Gardner Minshew has a better career deep ball completion percentage than Carson Wentz, a better pressured completion rate than Carson Wentz, better adjusted yards per attempt than Carson Wentz, a better accuracy rating than Carson Wentz, and better career fantasy points per game than Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, especially now that they're in a bind. But, I mean, what are they really going to offer? I mean, are the Jags even going to accept anything less than a second for Minshew? Maybe
I think they would, because they paid a lot of money for what's the former San Francisco backup. Nevertheless, they paid a lot of money for one of the backup quarterbacks from San Francisco last year to be the backup. And I can't imagine them Minshew cost nothing against the cap. They've already financially committed to this backup quarterback. So I could definitely see them going after a cheap option like Gardner Minshew, they're not going to offer a second, but maybe a fourth round. I mean, that's what they paid for in draft capital for Jacob Eason last year in the 2020 draft. So
yeah, we'll see. I think that the Colts have to make a move if they want. I mean, this team is
has Super Bowl aspirations. They've got a really good defense, an awesome offensive line. They've got really good pieces. You know, you mentioned Pittman. He's respectable. Paris Campbell is respectable. They've got Jack Doyle still. Kylan Grayson is a nice piece. The running backs
still there.
T.Y. Hilton is still there. They've got good pieces. Nyheim Hines, Marlon Mack. Like, these are still respectable pieces. So I think that, yeah, the Colts definitely need to make a move, especially once they get clarity on how long Carson Wentz will be out. That may increase their urgency. So, yeah, Carson Wentz out. Not good. Not good for now, and not good for dynasty players as well. Like, I was worried. Carson Wentz was my quarterback, I think like 28 or something ridiculously low. I was not optimistic about him anyways, but with an injury, absolutely fade Carson Wentz.
Yeah, you were lower than I was heading into camp. I mean, now we got to completely redo projections. It's like, as soon as we get done, it's like, we got to tweak it. It's a never-ending process, folks. Bradley and I are always adjusting and tweaking our rankings and our projections to better serve the listeners here on the Fantasy Data live stream show. So while we're talking about this, Bradley, for those of you who tuned in last week, Bradley, why don't you pick a number between 1 and 17? 14. Okay. So I'm going to randomly select a number. I'm going to go through the comments here, assign people numbers, and I'm randomly going to pick a person who commented on last week's show. So last week we had a question: who is going to be the running back 2 for the Chargers offense? While we were recording with Gilbert Manzano, who was the beat writer for the Chargers. And this week we wanted to give it away. So this week's winner is, drum roll. I missed the cue, Bradley. I found it. Here it is. Ready?
It's so long.
I gotta edit that out. Death Dealers at @Death_Dealers X is the winner of this week's Fantasy Data subscription. It's a $90 subscription that we are giving away free every single week here on the Fantasy Data show. And we're going to get to our next week's question here. We're going to get to in a few moments. So we're going to continue to go through our camp news here, and then we're going to touch base on our giveaway for next week here shortly. So if you're staying here, make sure to keep tuning in, because we're going to give that away in about 10 minutes, or talk about the giveaway in 10 minutes.
Phenomenal. I was even lower than I thought. Carson Wentz was my quarterback 29 going into this season. Anyways,
that's really low.
That's really low. I wasn't getting him anywhere. There you go. Let's go to the Washington football team, and they've had some reports with regard to their wide receiver core. So Curtis Samuel is placed on the COVID-19 list, along with a few other players. But Ron Rivera, the head coach, was pretty upset that a lot of his players had not gotten vaccinated. And as we've become more aware of the league's protocols, if you are vaccinated and test positive, you can, if I recall correctly, you can test out of the protocols if you have 2 negative tests at least 24 hours apart. But if you are unvaccinated, then you need to wait 10 days. You are out at least 10 days no matter what. So with the Washington football team with one of the lowest vaccination rates in the league, this is at least a concern, that they'll be able to catch up. And this might be a competitive advantage or disadvantage for certain teams. Like the Browns are almost at 90% of players with at least one shot. So, like, Billy, I know that, we're going to talk fantasy football about, a few other players as well, but maybe we can touch on the impact that COVID still has on, and the COVID protocols still have on the NFL right now.
Yeah, I think I underestimated the impact it was going to have this year. We saw like kind of the NBA and Major League Baseball just kind of glide through the season without many hiccups. But here we are now in camp, and we're already seeing it to be an issue. So I'm going to have a little bit more hesitation going into the season than I initially had. But I want to see how it breaks down more, how the rates of the teams affect it, what happens in these camps. And I think we're going to have a little bit better understanding. But something to also consider is once these players get it, like they're typically going to be good for 3 months. So players like Lamar Jackson, players like Gus Bradley, Gus
Edwards.
Thank you. Those are the players that are going to be, pretty much clear until almost November now, because they've already received that they already got it, and they're not going to have to worry about it as much. So I think that's something that we're not really honing in on, is players who are receiving it early actually have an advantage come fantasy football season than players who could potentially get it week 1, week 2, week 3 that have a longer impact during the season.
And this opens the opportunities, at least early in camp, for the likes of Dyami Brown and Adam Humphries, who are new to the Washington football team and have been getting first team reps. Dyami Brown getting work in the slot along with Humphries. But if we remember, Adam Humphries had a pretty good connection with Ryan Fitzpatrick when they were teammates in Tampa Bay in 2018. Adam Humphries with an 800-yard campaign there. Dyami Brown was... he fell to the Washington football team, a speedster, certainly an interesting prospect at wide receiver. But this is a team that is looking for someone to really pop aside. They spent a lot of money and went out and got Curtis Samuel to complement Terry McLaurin, but they didn't stop there. They went after Humphries, who had a good connection with Fitzpatrick. They went after Dyami Brown. So wide receiver was very much addressed this offseason.
Yeah, it was. And I think that's also why I'm taking a look at like Logan Thomas and McKissick, and I'm downgrading those players going into 2021. I mean, we saw astronomical levels of targets for Logan Thomas as well as McKissick last year. And with the addition of these players, I think it's only natural to say that these players should see a decrease in their opportunities.
Because of dump off Alex.
Correct. Yeah. And that was another factor. Like you had, dump off Alex there who favors those positions, but not just that, but now you have somebody, you have these other players that are talented on the field that are going to eat into that timeshare. So I'm curious to see Curtis Samuel, how he shakes off these injuries, how he shakes off, this COVID list items. But I think that it's early enough in camp. We're only in July right now to where it's not going to have a large impact.
Well, this weekend it's August, so
yeah, I
it's
guess
sneaking
you're right.
up real quick here, Billy. Broncos coach Vic Fangio believes Courtland Sutton is, quote, still holding back a bit from his return from the ACL injury he suffered last year. The quote from Fangio said he's worked in the offseason, but all his work in the offseason was on air. Now you put defenders out there, it's a totally different ball game. I do see some hesitancy. Fangio wasn't trying to provoke alarm and said that Sutton is progressing. Is this fire or is this smoke coming from Vic Fangio?
I think it's smoke. I think he's just trying to push Sutton. Maybe Sutton does have a little hesitation. I mean, it's a trust factor, especially with these guys that are cutting off their knees and they're used to, not having to worry about this injury in the back of their head. As a receiver, I think that's there. And so I think maybe Fangio is just trying to push him to kind of mentally get over that hurdle. I'm going to say smoke. I'm not buying the fire.
Okay, what about Rashad Penny, who also, but 2 years ago, suffered this ACL injury? He worked back. He played a couple snaps last year, looked pretty ineffective, though, in that very small sample. Rashad Penny reportedly slimming down 7 pounds. He's looking, quote, way faster. The ever-optimistic Pete Carroll said that he looks great. He's worked out here all throughout the offseason. Looks like he's paying off. It might be the best he's looked since we've seen him. Do we believe the ever-optimistic Pete Carroll?
I never believe Pete Carroll. Pete, he's the worst. Like, he's almost as bad as McVay. Like, he talks about, he's just so optimistic at any given time. I do like the fact, though, that Penny's down in weight. That's a good thing. I had high hopes for Penny coming out of college. He just never reached that potential. Maybe he'll have a year this year. I'm not counting on it, but I do like the fact that he is down at 223 pounds, though.
As for the Philadelphia Eagles, the Philadelphia Inquirer reports that Jalen Reagor failed the Eagles conditioning test on Wednesday.
It was also Goddard.
Yeah, also Goddard. Maybe the Eagles are going to need Zach Ertz more than we initially thought. But Reagor also picked up a lower body tightness in the process. Reagor wasn't physically or mentally ready to pass the test. But the reports actually came out that there was an unfortunate loss, that there was a murder of a childhood friend that Reagor had experienced. So look, if you experience some trauma, certainly, that'll get in your head and that may affect your performance. So, if Reagor needs some time, like if you need some time to reset yourself, like we even saw this past week, Simone Biles, like say, I can't do this, in the Olympics in the highest stage, due to concerns about performance and her own safety. And certainly met with, a lot of praise and criticism everywhere, but really it's about athletes being able to identify, like, this is a time for me to perform. And this is a time for me to really do a reset about what's going on in life. So, it's at this time where Reagor can afford, fantasy wise, to do a reset on that, but hopefully he can get the conditioning set.
Yeah, I don't know what the test actually entails. Do you? Like, I have no idea. And so I'm curious, like,
right.
Like what do they have to do? Are they running, certain amount of laps, certain amount of time? Are they having to do, strength conditioning? I have no idea what it entails. So I want to look more into it. I'm actually curious to look it up because we hear every year somebody failing this. And it never really matters. Like the player, you always comes back and plays, and it's never a big deal. So I'm not worried about the failed quote unquote condition test. So we'll see what happens, but I do want to find out what is actually entailed in the test.
Maybe when we go down for the Fantasy Football Expo, we'll have to take a look at that test. Maybe we can try it out ourselves
at the Brown Stadium.
Phenomenal. The Athletics' Mark Kaboly reports that there's been limited to no outside work for Juju Smith-Schuster in training camp. This was one of the things that Juju had hoped would happen, that he would get more work on the outside. It seems that initially is not the case. Obviously, outside wide receivers tend to get paid more because they make bigger plays and have that bigger playability. But if Juju is going to work in the slot, like, I can't imagine a scenario where he's not getting peppered with targets. And he didn't drop any passes. So in full PPR leagues, I think that's actually a good thing for Juju.
I love it. Like I initially read this headline that I wasn't quite sure how to feel, but then I was just like, I started thinking, I was like, he's going to be completely locked in the slot. That's where he excels. He's not going to be competing against the likes of like Claypool on the outside and Deontay and rotating in on that section. He's going to be locked in on the field in the slot. This is where he does his magic and where he is the best. So I think that this is good news here for Juju. Hit the hammer on the nail, Bradley. I think it's great for PPR leagues, and I'm really excited that he's going to be locked in the slot.
Like, he's going to be a pretty safe back-end wide receiver too. He's not going to have super high upside, but he'll give you a floor. And if you want to take swings at higher upside players that carry more risk, and Juju Smith-Schuster is your flex play, that's you're putting yourself in a good position to at least make yourself competitive every week. Your boy Raheem Mostert, Billy.
Oh, did you see his rant last night on Twitter?
I did. He's been practicing with a knee brace, but do you want to do a recap for our listeners on how Raheem Mostert reacted to the media's reaction to him practicing with a knee brace?
Yeah, essentially he said, I'm only going to say it once. I'm not injured, and stop creating drama. That's a paraphrased. He went into much more detail than that, but it's a knee brace he's had for years. He's telling everyone he's not injured. He's just wearing it to wear it for a precaution and to extend his career in the NFL. I'm not worried about it. If Raheem Mostert's not worried about it, I'm not worried about it.
Raheem Mostert is one of the older running backs in the NFL, but he doesn't have the tread that a lead back has at that typical age. Like I believe he's 29 years old, but he doesn't have the tread of a 29-year-old. He has struggled with injuries over the past few years. He hasn't seemed to stay healthy. He's dynamic, but it seems that every couple games something tends to crop up. So as long as he's confident that he's okay, I agree with you, Billy. We should be okay drafting Raheem Mostert.
So we have a question here from a listener, but before we dig into the question, I want to, for those of you who are watching, this week, our question for the listeners is, what is a camp battle that you are most closely watching and why? Comment inside the show here or on the actual stream on Twitter. So you can do it if you're on Facebook, do it on Facebook. If you are on YouTube, do it on YouTube. If you're on Twitter, do it on Twitter. What is a camp battle that you are most closely watching for this year in the NFL and why? I'll post it here as well, so you have something to respond to. But that is going to be the question for the giveaway for next week. And if you missed it, we just gave away last week's, which was the question about who was going to lead, who's going to be the second running back here for the Chargers. And the winner of that was Death Dealers on Twitter. So again, I'll make a comment here, respond to that, either whatever platform you're on, for a chance to win a free fantasy data subscription valued at $90 for next week.
All right. We do have a question following up from our talk on Juju Smith-Schuster. We have a question from CM on the YouTube. What about Ben's health? Does that play into your thoughts on Juju? And look, Ben is 38 years old, 39 years old. He's struggled with, he lost a pretty much a full season to the elbow injury. He looked like he had lost it, so I think he's going to trust his slot receiver, Juju Smith-Schuster, just like he did last year. Eric Ebron. Billy's been getting Ebron everywhere. I think that Ebron is a value at this time in the drafting season.
Not as much now. I was getting them in like April and May. It was late in drafts, like around 20 plus. But now that we're in best ball 18 drafts, I haven't been picking them as much.
Yeah. So Juju, I don't think he has a very high ceiling, but he has an extremely high floor. He was very touchdown dependent as well this past season. And if we see the likes of Najee Harris getting involved in the passing game, we could see a decrease in Juju Smith-Schuster's target share and touchdowns. As I mentioned, he's probably more of a back-end wide receiver too in full PPR leagues.
Yeah, I'm not going to be too concerned about Ben's health until we see him get re-injured again. I mean, injury is always a risk with anyone in the NFL. I joked around last episode and said the NFL stands for not for long. And some players like Ben have made it the distance. And yes, he always has, that injury factor in the back of your mind. But until he actually gets hurt, I'm not worried about it with Juju, especially inside the slot.
Well, we'll move to another player who's been getting work in the slot. And that's been Carolina Panthers rookie Terrace Marshall, who is now a candidate to replace Curtis Samuel. On Thursday, so yesterday, Marshall reportedly shined, showcasing catch radius, making big catches. He's more of like a Michael Thomas-like wide receiver in the slot, like a power slot. He's got 4.4 speed. He's 6'3", 201. He can make sense anywhere across the field. So this is a player that might be able to make a big-time impact that we have to keep our eyes on here in this Carolina offense, a revamped offense with Sam Darnold now behind the helm. So certainly an interesting player to keep your eyes on.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I love camp time. Like everyone just gets hyped, but everyone, but I really like him. I think he has a lot of talent here. I'm excited to see how he's going to play here in 2021 and excited to see it progress into preseason and then into the NFL. All
right. Yeah, let's maybe we won't quit hyping up Marshall. Drive up his ADP. Sorry, Trevor. Awesome. We'll have to talk about another quarterback injury. This time it occurred during camp, and that's Dak Prescott's shoulder injury. Thankfully, it seems to be less serious than Carson Wentz's, but head coach Mike McCarthy said, I don't know if you put him in like a limited category. He'll do all the run game stuff, all the footwork stuff. We got to shut him down for throwing for a couple days. It's the end of July. It's going to be the beginning of August next week. There's no reason to push Dak Prescott, especially since we anticipate Dak is among the league leaders in pass attempts, just given the amount of pass volume, the rate of play, and the potency of the offense. So I think there's no reason to push Dak Prescott. Garrett Gilbert has been working as the number 2 behind Prescott, so he's actually got some work with the ones. This is not a high alert. This is not like a red flag, but certainly worth monitoring, seeing if this is a shoulder injury that will continue to linger.
Yeah, and how much of it is that he's not using the weight and balance of his ankle and using more of his arm. Maybe he's relearning how to throw right now because he doesn't have that trust in the ankle. So for me, I think that it's a non-issue right now. It's something to monitor. I never like to see a shoulder issue with a quarterback or any kind of arm issue with a quarterback, but it's early enough in camp where they can address it. And maybe it is, he's just not putting the pressure on his legs or his ankle when he's throwing because of that injury factor from last year.
Great. We'll move on to the Chargers backfield. And since we talked with Gilbert Manzanos last week, Justin Jackson has now been taken off the team's COVID-19 list. So he's been available only 24 hours after, he was placed on it. And because of that, we can infer that Justin Jackson is now vaccinated. So that's good for him to just be competing in that backfield. That was our question from last week, that XDeath_dealers was able to win.
Yeah, Justin Jackson, I think, is the most talented back behind Austin Eckler in this offense. It's just a matter of him staying on the field, and good for him. He was able to get back out there quickly to not get behind in camp. Like Gilbert said last week, we had ball security issues from Josh Kelly last year. This year they drafted Roundtree. So I think that Jackson has a lot to prove. They have, some draft capital in the other two, but I think by far he's the most talented of the other backs in this backfield. And I'm hoping that he is the one to kind of take the reins as number 2 in this offense. So thanks, Death Dealers, for commenting on last week's show. You were the winner for the free sub giveaway. And for those of you who just tuned in, make sure to go back and look at our question that we just asked about 5 minutes ago for this week for the giveaway for next week.
Awesome. We'll take our talents and our chat down to Miami, where the wide receivers seem to just keep getting plagued with injury. Wide receiver Will Fuller is dealing with an undisclosed injury. Devontae Parker has started on the PUP. Preston Williams is on the PUP. Jalen Waddle is still recovering from, it's very evident Jalen Waddle is still recovering from his ankle injury from camp. Tua Tagovailoa's lead wide receiver right now is Jakeem Grant. That's not good practice. The Dolphins went out of their way to address this wide receiver core with Fuller and Waddle this offseason, trading up for Waddle at that. And this is not how you want to start the end of July, beginning of August, with so many of their talented wide receivers on the injury, unavailable to practice or practicing in a limited capacity. I think this is a concern.
It is a concern, especially for Tua. I mean, for those who are projecting a breakout year for Tua, you can't get your number 1, your number 2, and even wide receiver 3,
wide receiver 4,
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? You just go down the list. Nobody's healthy. But something that people aren't talking about is, what about Gesicki? Are we going to see a bump now in Gesicki for being on the field, creating that chemistry here with Tua? So everyone's always so quick to point out what is missing in this offense, but for the pieces that are there, I think we got to, take a look at this in kind of big picture and say, Gesicki's on the field right now. I think for me, he gets a bump up inside this offense now, at least for end of July projections and rankings. I mean, that's soon to be seen what happens here next week in week 2 in camp.
He may be a very interesting, week 1 DFS play. If he can be cheap enough, I'd be very interested in possibly seeing Gesicki, have one of those explosion games with all the chemistry that he's building and the unavailability or varied unavailability of the wide receiver core.
Yeah, and Gesicki, I mean, he performed well down the stretch. I'm going to pull it up right now for the listeners to see. on the fantasy data page here, but let me just pull it up real quick so people can see. So share screen and Chrome tab. Okay. Are you able to see that all right? Should I zoom in? There we go. I mean, look at the targets that we had here for these final, 4 weeks. 11 targets, 9 receptions, 6 targets, 5 receptions, 7 targets, 4 receptions, 10 targets, 5 receptions. A lot of this was due to the fact of injury, but if we're going to continue to see these injuries here amount and just kind of build upon each other here for this Dolphins team, Gesicki is an under the radar tight end now going into week 1. And I agree with you, Bradley. I think that he might be a great DFS play if these injuries continue. So a lot of cool tools here, folks. If you like anything you see here on Fantasy Data, make sure to use our sub. So that's going to be FFF20, and you get 20% off any Fantasy Data subscription, and that stacks, folks. So for all my best ball players that are watching right now, there's already a discount going on the site, and if you subscribe with our code FFF20, it's another 20% off. I think it takes it down to like 40 something bucks a year, which is crazy with the amount of stats that you can pull up from here. So yeah, that's my rant for the site and for Gesicki.
Absolutely. We do have a comment. Maybe Gaskin gets a lot of dump offs, and that's a possibility as well. We saw Gaskin be an effective pass catcher. The Miami Dolphins also did bring in the lead pass catcher from the Rams last season. Then that was Malcolm Brown.
Who's also good in the red zone.
He is. But as Larkey, in our debate with Josh Larkey, Larkey and all three of us agreed that Malcolm Brown is just a jag. So he may get some targets, he may get some love, but it may include increased pass volume for the running backs as well if the wide receivers are unavailable to go. However, a wide receiver that is good to go is my wide receiver one in this preseason, Calvin Ridley, back from foot surgery, returned to practice on Thursday. He underwent this offseason foot surgery, which kept him out of OTAs. But when Julio was out last season, Ridley had a 31% target share and 51% of the team's air yards in the 7 games, as I mentioned, that Julio was out. I'm all in. Give me all of the Calvin Ridley. I want him so bad. Yeah, I don't care about foot surgeries right now. It seems minor. It's smoke. Don't worry about it. Calvin Ridley is going to feast this year in the Atlanta Falcons offense.
I just pulled up our projections because I know you have him as 1. I have him as 2, and I just wanted to see how far apart our projections were. 53 fantasy points. That's quite a bit, actually.
It is.
So, I mean, I think it's partly Ridley. He's my number 2.
Atlanta pass volume. I think my pass volume's higher.
Oh, it is. Yeah, you have 48 more attempts, but still, that's. I mean, I love Ridley too. Ridley's my number 2 going into the season, only behind Tyreek Hill. And so I love both these players.
I have them flip flopped. So
yeah, we're neck and neck right there. But I'm not worried about Ridley's foot here. Seems to be already back on the field. He's rock and rolling. So fire up your Ridley. Don't worry about the foot. He's gonna eat this year in 2021.
Over the past few weeks, we've gotten a lot of positive Damien Harris buzz. Ramondre Stevenson has been on the non-football injury list. Sony Michel seems to just be dust. James White has gotten nothing. And just recently, Coach Bill Belichick has come out and said that Damien Harris has an opportunity to really compete for the lead spot. Damien was a player who improved a lot from year 1 to year 2. Now he has an opportunity to compete for the lead spot. I've been impressed with the commitment he's shown. And if you get Bill Belichick on your side, he will ride you into the ground. And that's what we saw with Damien Harris when he was available.
Bradley, I'm really disappointed. You should have read that entire caption with a hoodie on and a Bill Belichick voice. You missed the opportunity.
Well,
you could have had the hood on, sitting in the dark, and been like, Damien Harris really performed for us last year.
Come to the dark side. Yeah. So look, I know that all of us fantasy managers have been concerned about Cam Newton's rushing involvement and how much Cam Newton would be stealing carries from Damien Harris, especially around the goal line. But I think that this is going to really open up Damien Harris. I think that He's one of the best graded running backs for PFF. He's an ascending player. And I think that the offense and defense are like, they're going to be in better game scripts for Damien Harris. There were a couple games where he was scripted out because of mistakes that the offense was making and that the defense was making. I think he's a really interesting third running back on your team. Like if you are...
Yeah, he's exactly that. He's my third running back. He's actually my 10th most owned in FFPC right now at 13.04%. I just think that this is the first year since I can remember that we have clarity inside this backfield. First time ever, we have a clear 1-2 runner. First time ever, we have a clear number 3, third down running back here in White. No more Rex Burkhead. Sony Michel has just been trash and hurt. So I think that this is going into 2021 is the first time that we have an understanding of who has the ball in 1 and 2 and who has the ball in 3. Like they could have always rotated somebody in like they always did. And this is the first year ever where it's been clearly defined. So I'm in on Damien Harris, and I don't really care about who's the quarterback, whether it's Cam Newton or if it's Mac Jones. I think that this offense is going to run a lot this year. They have an improved defense. I think they're going to play a little bit more old school football. They're going to try to take away the mistakes from Cam Newton early in the season. And if that fails, then we see Mac Jones, which now is less of a risk for Damien Harris and red zone packages, and it's only going to, increase his opportunity for goal line carries and for touchdowns. So I'm in on Damien Harris in 2021, especially at ADP right now.
I have Damien Harris projected for 1,000 rushing yards, but what holds him back, I only have him projected for 3 rushing touchdowns and 18 total targets. He's not going to be involved in the passing game. That's James White's role. And he probably is going to get vultured a lot around the goal line if Cam Newton might even be benched. And if they get in the goal line, they might hand it off to Cam Newton, or he takes like the Jacoby Brissett role from last season. If you remember, Jacoby Brissett had like 2 or 3 rushing touchdowns where he was brought in for those special roles on the Colts. So anything is within the Bill Belichick possibility, but yeah. I like Damien Harris as a running back 3.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. Let's talk about Raiders running back Kenyon Drake. He was placed on the non-football injury list, and
activated today.
He was activated today, but the Raiders he probably was. He was activated probably because Theo Riddick retired today as well. So just throwing that out there as well. Thank you, Theo Riddick, for filling in as a flex play for me a couple years ago. Desperation flex play. Jalen Richard also on the COVID-19 list. Look, it's Josh Jacobs, Kenyon Drake, and then like nobody else. We're talking Trey Ragas and Garrett Groshek. Okay, it gets real gross, Shaq.
I see what you did there.
It gets really gross after Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake. I have an article that's hopefully going to drop soon where I talk about Josh Jacobs and the value that he has this offseason. He's definitely.
I'm going to read that tonight, by the way. I haven't read it yet. I'm going to be honest with you.
I'm very interested in drafting Josh Jacobs. He's actually fallen 10 spots in ADP over the past 5 weeks. And it's now leveled out, but he's going at the back end of the 5th round in some drafts. We were able to get him at the beginning of the 6th, I think, in a recent episode.
Yeah, 6'3" in FFPC the other day.
Right. He's been dropping, and no news. Like this Kenyon Drake.
But then again, like he gets fired up like randomly. Like I saw him go at like 3-4 like last night. I'm like, what the hell? Like
there's a Josh Jacobs truther.
I'm just in some
drafts.
Whoa, that was Josh Jacobs.
So we'll see what kind of role Kenyon Drake has, but the initial reports are that it's going to be more of a change of pace and pass catching role instead of, splitting the 1A work with Josh Jacobs. We'll shift into Chicago, if that's all right, Billy.
Yeah, go for it. I don't have much to add on that.
Okay. Cole Kmet, your boy Cole Kmet. Coach Matt Nagy has said that he sees Cole Kmet's role increasing in 2021. His role was already increasing. Like, let's be honest, Cole Kmet was already doing really well at the back half of the season. Like after week 12, we saw him playing in the 70s and 80% snap shares, whereas Jimmy Graham was more like 40, 50%. He was very heavily involved as a rookie. So I think he's already ascended. I don't think this is a role increase. This is a role maintained from the end of last year, especially in light of the Anthony Miller trade.
I missed the beginning. I was typing the question on YouTube. Who was the player?
Cole Kmet.
Cole Kmet. Oh, yeah. I love Cole Kmet. Sorry, I was typing in the stuff for the giveaway. I'm like, crap, I missed the name. I hope he says it again.
Yeah.
No, Cole Kmet just got a bump in my rankings. I mean, Anthony Miller, I didn't have projected for a lot of receptions. I think I'm going to pull it up here so I have exactly the number for folks. So Anthony Miller had projected for 55 targets. So, 9% here of the target share. That's just going to get spread around. So, I mean, give Cole Kmet another 3%. That's going to take him in my projections from 67 to 85 roughly.
Billy's doing a live update. This is great.
I'm doing live update, by the way. Yeah. You're going to have somebody like Darnell Mooney, who I had at 17%. I'm going to say probably 19%. It's going to take you from 103 to 115 targets. And then the remaining 4%, you're probably going to see a couple go to someone like David Montgomery, Damian Williams, who is going to be playing here in place of Tariq Cohen, who's still physically unable to perform. And then, you had the what was a tight end signing that they just signed to Jesse James, right? So,
but he's a blocker. Let's be real.
He is a blocker, but he might get 1%.
He might get a 1 or 2. Yeah, not much.
So we're still going to see that kind of settle around. But I mean, anytime you can see someone go from 60 to 85 targets, especially in a tight end premium league, like I love it. Especially where he's
really
going,
nice.
Like round 12, round 13, round 11, wherever people want to fire him up in that range. I could see him start sliding into round 10 here shortly if this is what we're expecting in the target share.
Trevor's added a comment here, and I do want to address it. Josh Jacobs is falling because the offensive line is going to let more visitors in a Waffle House next to a college bar at 2 a.m. Did you see Julio Jones?
His nickname?
Fleet?
Yeah, Waffle House.
Yeah, because he's always open.
Yeah.
I do want to address this, though, because I thought so, too. Like, we heard all offseason how the Raiders had either released or traded their offensive line. They had a whole fresh offensive line. Why are they doing this? A lot of them are all pros or former all pros. Why? Their run blocking was 6th worst in the NFL last season. 6th worst. Like, you only have 5 teams lower than you. You're not going to get much worse than what was happening in the run game last season for the LA Raiders or the Las Vegas Raiders. So really, it was probably a cost-saving move and building for the future. So I'm not concerned about Josh Jacobs performing because he already did that last year. He was running back 8 in total points and running back 12 in points per game. So I'm not concerned about Josh Jacobs and the effect of the offensive line.
You know what I am concerned is that Trevor's been here the entire show and he hasn't commented on who he is most excited to watch in camp battles for a chance to win the free premium sub. He's let us know about this Waffle House O-line.
Terrace Marshall.
He's let us know about us not talking up Terrace Marshall, who's going to be a beast, by the way. So I'm just going to
Cam Newton versus again. No, he did talk about Cam versus Mac Jones.
He did. I missed it.
Yeah, there we go. All right, there we go, Trevor. All right,
Cam versus Daddy Mac. So that is the one comment that we have so far. I see it now. I missed it. I apologize.
Well, let's hit on Deshaun Watson, if that's all right. Deshaun Watson did report to Texans camp, but Texans coach David Culley said Watson is behind because he missed offseason workouts and needs, quote, as many reps as possible. Watson was seen practicing with the 4th string quarterbacks in practice after getting snaps at safety and running back.
They're putting him in. They're just putting him in decoy. They're not. He's not playing the position.
They are not. They're not risking injury. That's how this is being viewed, and especially since news has come out that the Texans are now willing to trade him. but for like 3 first-round picks and 2 usable starters, like, I get it, but
you're not going to get that right now. Not with all this
no.
lingering, legal issues.
And
Like,
the NFL did announce that it will not place any restrictions on Deshaun Watson's ability to participate in team activities at this time. The statements also noted that the league's review of the 22 instances, I think it's up to 23 now, of alleged sexual assault is still ongoing and active. Watson will not be deposed until February. So this is a big deal. He would have faced a $50,000 fine for each day missed. This makes sense financially. It makes sense for Watson. It makes sense for the Texans. It makes sense for everybody involved, honestly.
I mean, he's standing there to fill in at safety without tackling someone, wearing, a red jersey. He wasn't
wearing a red jersey to start even.
He's like, I'm just here so I won't get fined. But he's just sitting there collecting $50,000, just standing at the safety spot and not doing anything. You hit the hammer on the nail. They're just not risking injury. They're trying to find a suitor to trade him. We had Aaron Reese on the Texans beat, and he expected that he does not expect to see any Deshaun Watson here in 2021 for this Texans offense.
Yeah, and Tyrod Taylor has said that Watson has been great at helping him be the starter. So there you go, Tyrod. Great job. Great job being mentored now.
Trevor noticed my beverage tonight. No, Trevor, I actually have a beer tonight. So I brought out the Yeti cooler or the koozie. I got a beer inside tonight. I had wine last night. I did a draft with David Hubbard, and so I'm switching it up tonight. Beverage choice tonight it's a mango pale ale, actually, but it doesn't taste fruity at all. It's really good.
Nice. Let's hit on the Jets, the Packers, and then one more piece of note. The rookie running back Michael Carter has started training camp with the Jets' first team offense. Obviously, this is a good sign for those who are taking Carter late, but his stock is going to increase because, I mean, he's taking the first team reps. Ty Johnson and LaMichael Pirine certainly getting a little bit of buzz here and there, but Michael Carter, we talked pre-draft that he had a lot of skills and a lot of talent. So it very much will be the case that we anticipate the Jets using a committee backfield. But if Michael Carter can be a useful piece, that would be very interesting, and an improved offensive line, an improved quarterback, and improved coaching staff.
Yeah, this offensive line is actually sneaky good this year, and we're going to see them play from behind, and Carter has, the ability to catch as well. I do expect to see Coleman there early in the season, at least with some involvement.
It's not that I forgot Coleman. I just don't think he's any good.
No, he's washed. I mean, he's bad now, and but he has familiarity with Robert Saleh. He's got he's coming in with, I'm not going to say fresh legs, but he's non-injured legs. And
I mean, that's not a vote of confidence.
No, it's not a vote of confidence. I'm not giving him any vote of confidence.
He's at least not injured.
He's not dead. He's there, right? But
he's not Todd Gurley, right?
Yeah. He's got 2 knees. Like it's you're the starter. It's kind of like the employment world now, like trying to hire employees. Like, you showed up for your interview, you're hired. Right?
80% of life is just showing up and doing your homework. Thank you, Uncle Craig.
But so I do expect Coleman to have some sort of involvement, but it's only a matter of time until Carter takes over this backfield.
Well, 2 players from last year who were getting a lot of work with the first team, severe demotion. Denzel Mims is now working with the third team offense. He was previously working with the second team offense in minicamp. This escalated or de-escalated quickly. I put it on Twitter. Despite the Jets using a second-round pick on him, he was working with the likes of Jeff Smith and Lawrence Cager. Those players aren't even rostered in our 32-team league, Billy.
No, send him to the Saints, for crying out loud. Like, why? Like, just do this kid justice. Get rid of him. Send him to the Saints. They need a wide receiver. Give him to Aaron Rodgers, for crying out loud. Like, Aaron Rodgers will take anybody, detected. Right? Like, I saw the best quote on Twitter. It's like, after everything's said and done, Aaron Rodgers didn't need a receiver. He just needed a friend. And that's what's Randall Cobb.
My heart is melting right now.
It's so true. It's
like
but
a
it's
like
a
a
but
like a block of Swiss cheese.
yeah, exactly. But back to Mims. I mean, come on, just you brought in all this competition too. You brought in Corey Davis. You drafted Moore. You brought in Keelan Cole. I think is
Yep.
there as well. So
Jamison
if you're-
Crowder's still there.
Jameson Crowder's re-signed. Yep. So I mean, if do the kid a service, trade him, get something for nothing, move on. You already have the receiving core. You don't need to worry about it.
Chris Herndon is also working with the Jets' second team offense behind the likes of Tyler Kroft and Ryan Griffin. Griffin actually produced a couple years ago in the Jets' offense. It's not great, but I think all Chris Herndon shares are dead now.
Yeah, it's finally. I mean, like he did nothing, and he had all this hype week in, week out. And it's about time. Like I don't. It's after like he had like one good stretch, and that was it. Then he had that suspension, then injury, and so I think we can finally move on from the Chris Herndon days of the Jets. If there was even a thing, were they even a thing? Chris Herndon days.
There was a lot of hype last offseason from some fantasy football talking heads on Chris Herndon and his ceiling showing up somewhere in the back end tight end one.
Was his ceiling the subfloor? Like
a grave,
the coffin roof.
We had to dig 6 feet under before we started getting to a ceiling. Anyways, all right. Enough picking on poor Chris Herndon, ruined by Adam Gase. Let's go to my Green Bay Packers because headlines were made this week. Aaron Rodgers is now re-signed. He is going to play for the Packers in 2022. The Packers have voided, or 2021. The Packers voided the 2023 year in his contract, but the Packers still control his 2022 destiny in a sense. Right now, Aaron Rodgers' cap hit for 2021 is about $27 million. Pretty good.
Not bad.
His cap hit in 2022 is $47 million.
It's a lot of cash, Bradley.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And yeah, that is a lot of money.
I just keep clicking it.
You got to do that about 47 million times and then we'll get there. But look, this is amazing news for Davante Adams. This is amazing news for Aaron Jones. And Aaron Jones, I'm now much more confident. The reason why I was wavering a couple weeks ago in my Aaron Jones shares, as you remember, I have been all in on Aaron Jones being my running back 2 in projected points. I see him pass catching. I see him getting work at the goal line. This offense is still going to be very good with Aaron Rodgers. And I'm very interested in taking Aaron Jones in the first round. I think that he could jump Saquon Barkley, in ADP come the next couple of weeks when
He already has.
He already has now.
Yeah, in FFPC. Yeah, we're starting to see kind of
the
switch. The switch. Yeah, it's that 1-2 turn.
Yeah, so I think Aaron Jones is I'm much more confident taking him in the back end of the first round. This is great for Davante Adams. I think it puts him back in the first round conversation as well, with the likes of Tyreek Hill. When it comes to ADP, I think that's going to settle itself back out. Remember when you were getting Aaron Jones and Davante Adams on like the 2-3 turn?
Yeah, there's that team that I have. I think I started off with CMC in the one hole, and then I got Davante Adams and Aaron Jones. Like that.
You better have stacked with Aaron Rodgers later. I tell you what.
Yeah, I don't think I did. I think I got sniped. I think.
Oh man.
Yeah, I don't. It was early in draft, so that was like that was like May.
Okay. Well, there were some concessions that the Packers had to give, and one of them was that they had to bring Randall Cobb in. And Trey Wingo was the first to report rumblings of this, but the Packers will take on about $5 million of Cobb's contract, leaving Houston to pay $3 million, which saves Houston cap, and it also appeases Rodgers. So this is a win-win situation for both teams. Rodgers gets the teammate that he wanted. There were attempts to recruit Jordy Nelson out of retirement by Randall Cobb himself. But it showed up as Instagram, and Jordy was like, I'm comfortable in my Packers jersey on the couch. So, look, at Randall Cobb's 31. It's not like he's going to be a super fantasy relevant option. He might have a couple weeks here or there, but what this really does is it snuffs out any deep cut hope of Amari Rodgers being anything fantasy relevant at all.
Yeah, that's the one that hurts the most. I think it also hurts Tonyan a little bit. Tonyan was very efficient last year.
The return of Rodgers, I think, at least keeps Tonyan in the back end tight end one conversation.
Yeah,
like it's a give and take.
It is a give and take, but I think it's also like
I don't think Robert
didn't
Tonyan
have a lot of
tight end one with Jordan Love.
I mean, arguably, they rookie tight end or rookie quarterbacks lean on the tight end, but I mean, I don't
think Love is that good, but
he's not that good. But I mean, I think that any addition in the wide receiver core, I think, hurts Tonyan's value because he was hyper efficient last year. It was all touchdown based. I mean, you take away any of those targets and he's going to drop significantly. But I mean, all it does for Randall Cobb for me is it puts him in like my top 100 in wide receivers. Like he was outside the top 100 prior, and now he's like within the top 100, but not by much. It's like in the 90s. So, hey, he might surprise. Best ball target might not be bad as a last pick, but I'm not doing much more than that.
One other domino effect, and that's on the Texans, is I think this really does open up Keke Coutee in the slot. Coutee had really shown at flashes at times, really dynamic player, but he could be a very interesting slot player.
But Anthony Miller takes most of his work out of the slot.
I think that Coutee is better than Miller, but
yeah, Houston has never like committed to Keke Coutee. So the fact that they went out and grabbed somebody like Miller just speaks to me that he's the one that's going to be in that role. I mean, you might see Coutee involved, but I think that now that's Miller's job. If I had to put money on it, we'll see. Beer bet, Bradley. Beer bet.
I refuse to beer bet on the Houston Texans this year.
Fair enough.
All right. Last on the list is Lamar Jackson, not participating in the Ravens training camp due to COVID-related case. He ended up testing positive, and the Ravens, are giving Trace McSorley and other backups the opportunity. Trace McSorley, throw it on a dime.
Did you get it? But I was like, no, I'm gonna let.
Did you get it queued up?
I have it queued up. I'm not.
Please play it.
No. You really want the Tracy McSorley song?
Please open this podcast on the audio version with the Trace McSorley.
Oh no, I got rid of it actually.
No,
I did.
Oh, that's terrible.
Oh no, there it is. There you go. There's your Tracy McSorley song.
Led his high school to 4 straight state championships.
We continue talking as it's going. I don't think it's that loud.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see who takes over for Lamar, but I'm not too worried.
Yeah, and now that he is down with COVID, they're saying that the backups played well this week, and I'm not worried about Tracy McSorley. Lamar's going to play regardless. He's back in. I got him in round 7 like 2 nights ago in an FFPC FBG draft. So,
nice job getting your quarterback 1 and running back 1 in round 7.
Right? That's what I'm saying. Like Lamar Jackson, like round 7 is a smash for me. So super happy about it. Can I stop the McSorley song now? Are you okay with it? Yeah, we're gonna end it. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, like we had that song on for like our intro for like a month after Tracy McSorley led that comeback win when Lamar Jackson was taking the shit.
The Marquise Brown go ahead touchdown.
The Lamar Jackson Brown flush it down. That's what it was.
Oh my gosh.
He was running back into the halftime. But nonetheless, Lamar Jackson, he's gonna be fine. It's okay. And now he's got COVID. As long as he recovers from it, we don't have to worry about COVID for him now until probably October, November. So for me, I mean, as crazy as it sounds that he got COVID, it's actually, I think, for the season, it's a benefit that he's got it out of the way. and now he's got the I'm not a doctor. What's the word where they're now immune to it for the short term?
The antibodies.
Thank you. Yeah, I couldn't remember that word for the life of me. Well, I think that was the last one, Bradley, wasn't it?
Billy, that was a lot of camp news. We'll continue to monitor these very closely, and we'll continue to talk with some of the beat reporters over the course of the off season.
And speaking of, we have Sam Fortier from the Washington football team coming on Tuesday, the 3rd. That's this coming Tuesday. It's going to be 6 p.m. Pacific time. We're going to be live streaming that bad boy here on the Fantasy Data page, as here on YouTube, as well as Twitter and Facebook. So everywhere that you're watching it now will be same time next week, Tuesday the 3rd. Washington football beat writer, and we're going to dive in deep to this Washington football team. We're going to ask the questions that everyone's been thinking. And if you have any questions that you would like us to answer, make sure to tune in live, ask those questions live. Sam will answer those for you, and we're going to rock and roll. So I'm excited about it. I love having these beats on, get kind of some in-depth knowledge in the team and what's happening. I mean, it was eye-opening, especially from a projection standpoint, when we did this Houston and we did, the other teams, and now being able to tie in Washington football team, I feel like they're an underrated team heading into 2021.
Yeah, there are a lot of questions, but I think there are a lot of questions with higher profile players. It was very clear that, for instance, when we were asking Gilbert about the Chargers, we knew who the starters were, and it was a pretty ambiguous backfield or pretty ambiguous players behind them. But there's a lot of players who are very good at football competing on this Washington football team. And it will be very interesting to see how all of those targets and carries and everything is going to work out. Even Ryan Fitzpatrick and Taylor Heineke, there is a quarterback competition. We expect that Ryan Fitzpatrick wins it, especially given the financial commitments and his veteran presence. But Ron Rivera has said that this is a competition. So it'll be interesting to see as well how the first team snaps are breaking down at quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. But I fully expect the Fitz magic train to take off and lead this team. So nonetheless, I'll be excited to talk to Sam and get the deets, get the 411 here on Tuesday. So everybody, that's it for those who tuned in. Make sure to answer the question here, comment live, or once the recording's done, you can also comment on YouTube. You can comment on Twitter. You can comment on Facebook. You can comment wherever you want, where you can see this. Question is, what camp battle are you most interested in watching shake out here in 2021? Comment for a chance to win a free Fantasy Data sub premium subscription valued at $90. Last week's winner was Death Dealers X here, and we're going to be reaching out to him, getting his email to get him a free sub. So that's it, folks. All you got to do is comment, and we pick a random person every single week. So next Friday, we're going to pick that winner. $90 value subscription for the year, 1 full year subscription to fantasydata.com. And you can have all this information at your fingertips that Bradley and I use on a daily basis. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you all back here Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific time. That's 9 Eastern. We appreciate all the support. Have a good night.